I'm going to show you how to do the portosystemic encephalopathy syndrome test. There are 5 subtests in the test battery. Digit symbol test, number connection test, practice sheet, and the number connection test A and B, serial dotting, and line tracing test. There are 4 versions of the test battery. This is version 1. Here you see an example of version 4. And symbols and number placement vary between the versions, but otherwise they are the same. The test is validated for diagnosing minimal hepatic encephalopathy. You start with the digit symbol test. Here you have the patient complete the practice area. On top of the practice area, the patient has the key for solving the task. And then afterwards, you give the patient 90 seconds to complete as many boxes as possible. The next test is the number connection test A. You start with the practice sheet. That's not a part of the scoring of the test. Then you have the patient connect the numbers 1 to 25 as fast as possible. And they have to use straight lines, and they can go through some of the other circles to go to the number they're on the way to. Then the number connection test B, it's a bit harder. In that test, the patient has to connect numbers and then letters. So they go from 1 to A, 2B, 3C, and so on. They finish at 13. You note the time spent on the test at the top of the test sheet, and it's always written down in seconds. The serial dotting is a test where the patient has to make a little dot within a circle as fast as possible, always going from the left to the right. You time the seconds spent for the patient to complete the entire sheet. The line tracing test also has a practice area. You tell the patient that they have to draw a line and be both fast and precise, because this test has both a time score and an error score. During the task, the patient can't turn the paper and they can't lift the pencil. And you simply time how long time it takes for the patient to complete the entire line. You note it in seconds again. Then for the scoring of the test, you need adjusted normal values for your country and the line tracing scaffold. The digit symbol test is scored by counting how many boxes the patient correctly filled in. You note it on the scoring sheet and then go on to noting the time spent on number connection test A and B. For the serial dotting test, you also simply note the time spent. Then for the line tracing test, the time score is easy. You simply note the time spent, and now you need to find the scaffold to place on top of the entire trail. You have to place it precisely and then go through the entire trail 1 square at a time. The scaffold is divided into squares, as you see, and what you look for is errors. And an error is whenever the patient's line touches the trail line or goes beyond it. Here you have 2 errors. You assign 1 error per square. Here you see the patient's line crossing the trail line. Here you assign 2 errors per square because the patient's line is outside the trail line. Here you see the patient's line is outside the scaffold lines. In that case, you assign 3 errors per square. So you continue to go through the entire trail, counting every single error. Here you have an example of how it can look in real life as well. You note the number of errors you counted. And now you need your normal intervals to assign a score to the test performance. You do it one subtest at a time. You look up the patient's age in the normal table, and in some countries you also need to know the patient's educational level. If the patient's performance is within normal range, a score of 0 is assigned. The age was 40 here. The performance is within normal range, and so again 0 points. And for the number connection test B, 107 seconds were spent. We look up the age of 40 and can see that this performance is a bit slower, one standard deviation slower than expected, so a score of -1 is assigned. Serial dotting is within normal range. The time score for the line tracing test, 88 seconds, age 40, and again -1 is assigned because it was a bit slower than expected for the patient's age. And we have 23 errors, so that's within normal range, and a score of 0 is assigned. So if the patient is even slower than in this case, you can also assign -2 or -3 points. Here the score was -2, and the score can range from +6 to -18, and in most countries -5 or below is abnormal.